Hi everyone, it's Kim Dallow here as part of the Blitsy creative team, and I've got a mixed media project to share with you today. So let's get started with what you're going to use. So this whole project is based around an embroidery hoop, and for mine I've used an 8-inch one. Then I've used some calico, or also known as muslin in the US. The next thing you're going to need is some gesso. This is the Liquitex gesso. You can find it in the everyday section at Blitsy, as you can also with the golden gels as well. Some buttons, any colours will do, and some white paint. This is the Liquitex white paint. To add some colour, I've used the Irresistible sprays, the Teal Zeal and the Pear Tart, and the Morocco coloured Irresistible Pico Embellisher. A spray bottle of water is handy, and a marker pen, the Secura Pigma Micron is the one I'm using here. I've got some Memento Luxe ink pads to match the colours, and Ranger's Archival Jet Black ink pad. I'm also using some eraser refills for mechanical pencils, and you'll also need some white cardstock and a brush. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is draw around the centre of your embroidery hoop on the cardstock. Cut this out and save it for later. Then remove the centre of your hoop and place the calico or muslin over the top. So replace the embroidery hoop, the outer part of the embroidery hoop, and tighten it up, and then go around slightly pulling on the calico until you get a drum-like tension in the embroidery hoop. Now we want to glue the fabric to the inner ring of the embroidery hoop. So turn the hoop over and take some golden gel. I'd advise using the heavy gel, but I'm kind of running low on the heavy gel, so I've actually used the regular gel here for this. Take a palette knife and just smear the gel around the inside of the embroidery hoop on the wood and press the excess calico down onto it. Keep working your way around the hoop until you get to the start again. Once all the fabric is pressed onto the hoop, then just let it dry. Once the gel medium is completely dry, then just trim off the excess fabric. You're not going to need that. Hey presto, you've got a circle canvas. If you wanted to, you could now cover the surface with gesso, and you could then do anything you liked with it. But for this project, what we want to do next is to add some buttons. So I'm going to take off the outer ring of the embroidery hoop, bring in my buttons, and just play around with some designs. Once I'm happy with the placement of the buttons, I'm going to go back in, and this time with the heavy gel medium, and stick each individual button onto the canvas. Once all the buttons are in place, and whilst the gel medium is still wet, take something like a small ball embossing tool and scoop out the excess gel from the buttonholes. Once you've done that, you can just let everything dry. It's probably going to take about 24 hours, so go and get yourself a cup of tea or something. Okay, tea break over and it's time to get painty. So first up is a layer of gesso, and once we've covered the whole surface with gesso, buttons and all, we're going to let that dry, and then follow it with a layer of white paint. And now the fun part, adding the colour. And I've done this several different ways. So the first off is to use the Irresistible Pico Embellisher, adding a little bit of colour, adding a little bit of water, and just letting it run down the buttons and make several different patterns. And I've just kept adding it until I was happy with the effect I got. There's no real trick to this, you just keep adding the colour as you feel best, and you can even take some off with a cloth if you need to. I wanted a little bit more colour on the canvas as well as a background, just to tint it. So I've added the Pico embellisher and then sprayed it with water so you just get a faint bit of the colour coming through. I've let this first layer dry, and then with a torn piece of paper used as a mask, I've gone in and sprayed some of the Teal Zeal and Pear Tart Irresistible sprays over the top, just so that it goes on the buttons. Then I've added some more water, let it drip, let it mingle together, even gone in and taken a little bit off with a cloth. Before this layer is completely dry, I've taken a brush and moved a little bit of the colour around, added it to the buttons that were hidden by the mask, just so that the colour is more evenly spread. I then let that layer dry before coming back in with some matching ink pads. So the Memento Luxe ink pads, the Pear Tart Morocco Teal Zeal, and I've even added in a little bit, just a touch, of the Rosebud colour as well. And I've just swiped the buttons so it just sits on the surface of the buttons with each of the ink pads in turn. And I keep adding the colour in with an ink pad and then taking away some of the colour with a cloth until I'm completely happy with the way it looks. And the final trick then is to go back in with a little bit of the Pico embellisher colour, the Morocco, and a brush, and just add this to some of the buttons that need a little bit more emphasis. When you've finished adding colour, let this layer dry and then move on to the next layer, which is to use the Ranger Archival Jet Black ink pad to just add a little bit of black to the buttons. Working around, just swiping it over the edges and then around the whole canvas edge as well. So do you remember the erasers, the refill erasers for the mechanical pencils? Well, this is when I start using these. And I just dip them onto the ink pad and then onto the canvas to leave a pattern and keep working until I'm happy with that pattern. And if that wasn't texture enough, I just come back in with a pen, with the marker pen, and add a little bit of doodling and writing. So I've just written buttons everywhere or something like that, and then added some circles and some lines as well. And there you go, it's finished. So all you need to do now is find that card circle that you cut at the beginning, place it on the back and the inside of the hoop, and you can hold it in there with some heavy gel if you need, and replace the outer ring of the embroidery hoop. You can always paint the outer ring of the embroidery hoop first if you like, but I kind of like the way the wood looks. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this mixed media project and how I've put it together, and I hope it's inspired you to go and make one of your own. If it has, come and link it up at Blitsy. If you go to blitsy.com/inspiration, you can link up your projects there. I'm Kim Dello, and you can find me at kimdello.co.uk, and this has been a Blitsy Creative Team project. Thanks very much for watching. Bye!